All right. Good morning. Welcome to Inside Pages on Metro Television. My name is Audu Moro. Inside Pages this morning is looking at two very, very, very important but also very controversial issues that have come up in the course of the week. Is it November 7 or December 7? The Electoral Commission is making some amendments. It's actually fiercely pushing for some amendments to be made with the Constitution to enable Ghana to hold its elections on November 7. The Electoral Commission is citing reasons such as the fact that these were amendments that were actually proposed as far back as in 2015, and so they are only implementing these amendments. The NDC, on the other hand, is saying no, the timing is problematic, and that organizationally is going to create a lot of problems. We'll delve into the pros and cons of this proposal for Ghana to hold its elections on November 7, talking about both presidential and parliamentary, and some of the hurdles that we would have to cross if indeed we have to go that route. That's the first topic on Inside Pages today. Now, the second topic is also another controversial one. The second topic has to do with yet another proposal. Now, this proposal came up, again, as I did indicate, in the course of this week. And it's been debated quite widely. It has to do with vote buying. And the big question as to whether Ghana has lost its fight against vote buying. And we're talking about a phenomenon where people are actually paid money, physical cash, or given all kinds of inducement. Either TV sets, they're giving mobile phones, they're giving all kinds of things for them to vote for a particular candidate or the other. And we know what the consequences are when people sell their votes. Typically, they get to vote the wrong person into that position. And then the people come back and complain about why they're not getting the kinds of public services that they expect. So these are the two very important conversations that we intend to have. When I come back after this break, I'll tell you who my resource persons are who are ready to deal with the vexed issues. I'll be right back. All right, so welcome back. This is Inside Pages on Metro Television. Thank you very much for tuning in. You've made the right choice. You made the right decision. So Inside Pages, as I did indicate earlier today, we're looking at two very important topics. These are great. These are very, very critical conversations we need to have. One is about the vote buying phenomenon, which appears to be on the increase. We've seen what happened with the just ended the MPP's parliamentary elections. We saw the kinds of items that were being distributed here and there. We've had civil society organizations, we've had traditional authorities, we've had the clergy, we've had Ghanaians complaining bitterly about this vote buying culture. This madness that has characterized our democracy, where you put yourself up for a position, you're going to tell the delegates or the electors to vote for you, and the electorates are asking you to give them money, to give them cars, to give them this, to give them that, and it drains these aspirants or these contestants. And so when the person pays you what you're expecting them to pay you, how do you expect the person to recoup the money when the person becomes an MP or becomes an assemblyman or whatever? So we have a big problem there. And I don't know how else we intend to solve this problem, because with all kinds of proposals have come through, but it doesn't appear that we're making any headway. So we want to see whether we can use this morning to propose some very, very cogent, very practical and well thought through solutions to this menace of vote buying. But we will start with an issue which potentially would make the NDC and the Electoral Commission cross swords. What is it? The Electoral Commission is saying that this year it wants to change the voting day from the conventional 7th December and bring it forward to November 7. The reason is simple, that this was the proposal was made as far back as in 2015. But they have thought it wise to implement it or to listen to that proposal in 2024. We are in February. The Electoral Commission says it can't pull it off. The NDC says you can't, because you don't have enough time to pull this off. Let's go with the time-tested 7th December. There's no problem with the 7th December. If it is not broken, why fix it? We've been fine. We've been practicing this from 1992. Why do you want to shift it to November 7? What is it? What's the Electoral Commission on about? That NDC is suspicious about what the Electoral Commission is trying to do. The Electoral Commission says, well, we've nothing to hide. We're just doing our job. We want the transition process after the person has been declared till the person as a winner, till when the person is inducted as president to be a smooth process. In any case, the Electoral Commission says in case there is a runoff, we should be able to have enough time between the time the votes, the last election ends and when the new one will be conducted. We must have enough time to be able to do it in a manner that doesn't put a lot of pressure on the Electoral Commission. So both of them are arguing. Now here's the thing. The New Patriotic Party has said, well, as for them, anything goes, even though they are more, they are more tilted towards the November 7, voting day. But if the Electoral Commission says that to go back to December 7, they're fine with it. But then they're asking the NDC, you're the one who say that Ghanaians want MPP out of power today. So if they bring it forward, that's good for you. So why are you running away from November 7th? So it's a very interesting debate that's happening. But this is what I'm going to do. I want us to watch this video. After watching this video, I'll come back and speak to my resource persons. So I have 4 people who will be speaking on this, on the 2 topics today. Now, the first person I want to introduce is Shamima Muslim. Now, Shamima Muslim is the founder of Alliance for Women in Media Africa, not Ghana, Africa. So Shamima is on Zoom. I want to believe Shamima is actually on Zoom. Shams, are you there? Good morning. Okay. Right. Okay, Shams will be joining us via Zoom shortly. But also have Dr. John Osai Kwapon of the CDD. He's a CDD fellow, Talking Ghana branch, and also a political scientist. Dr. John Osai Kwapon, I hope you are already on Zoom, aren't you? Good morning. Good morning, Doc. Okay, Doc will join us shortly as well. Let me also say that I will be joined by the Member of Parliament for that's the Asante-Akim North constituency. That's Andy Apiakubi. He will also be joining us shortly. Let me also say that if you have any views you want to express, the number is there, 0249-155-646, 0249-155-646. I'll be more than happy to hear what you think about the two topics that we're putting before you this morning. Let's watch this video. When we come back, hopefully my resource persons will join. And Kofi Adams, Kofi Adams, the MP for Buem, he'll be joining us in the studio with Andy Apiakubi. So let's watch this video.
After several months of boycotting IPAC for unfair treatment by the Jane Mensah-led administration, the biggest opposition party, the NDC, returned to contribute to key subjects ahead of the 2024 general elections. Matters such as moving the voting dates from December 7 to November 7 were tabled.
Hope that the very issues that took the NDC out will be addressed. When we agree on matters, let's implement them as they are. We've even asked the EC to form a special committee to delve into the register so that we can clean it and ensure that we have a foolproof register way ahead of the next registration. As we speak, we do not have the calendar of activities for the Electoral Commission.
Other political parties, including the New Patriotic Party and the PNC, were excited to have the NDC's presence and contribution at IPAC after a long absence.
The NDC were with us last week. I think it's not bad for them to change their position. In any case, the prodigal son later came home, and so they've been welcome. I think it will help that when they are here, they will get to know how issues are discussed and how it helps the EC to take certain position, and so they are welcome.
Okay.
And IPAC has never been the same ever since they left. In fact, they left a vacuum, and now coming back, they have filled that this in. And IPAC, they were even supposed to organize a party for them today. I don't know why the party has not come on, because Electoral Commission promised that they will organize a party for them.
The proposed November date of the 2024 elections has been topical for weeks as Electoral Commission considers it crucial for parties to have enough time to address any challenges that may arise from voting.
New Patriotic Party stated its position that we don't have any problem if the EC is going to have elections conducted on the 7th. However, if it doesn't change from December, we are all for it.
Okay.
We've asked the EC to broaden its consultation, to engage other parties, other interested bodies, and look at it properly. We don't think that the holiday will have any influence on the voting population. And so if it is not holiday, it doesn't spoil anything. Yeah.
For now, any decision on the possible change of the elections to November 7 has been moved to the 2028 elections. Though the MPP does not have any problem with the November date, other parties believe the EC must focus on immediate concerns of the 2024 elections.
When the next registration will take place, we can't determine that date. So we expect them to bring the register. When the calendar of activities, when all these things have not been done, how do you even overburden yourself with other issues when you had 2017 to 2029 before the 2020 elections, 2021 to 2023 before the 2024 elections? So this was a reasoning that was overwhelming. Said that the consensus was, look, bright ideas, let us look at them, but let the date of effectiveness be the 2028 election.
Other analysts and experts believe the November 7 date will give the winning party enough time to transition into government, a position the NDC opposes vehemently.
In a recent proposal, the Electoral Commission proposed a date for both presidential and parliamentary elections. The Electoral Commission also wants election days in Ghana to be designated as national holidays. The Electoral Commission is considering shifting the general election date from December 7 to November 7. Editor of the Insight newspaper, Kwesi Pratt Jr. says EC's proposal to shift the election date is uncalled for, as it is not the most pressing issue the Commission needs to reform.
We should avoid the situation where election results are announced on mere sheets of paper, without signature, without letterhead. We should avoid it. We should put in the mechanism to ensure that election results, do not exceed, the number of votes cast, do not exceed, declared, do not exceed the number of registered voters as well. These are the important things. As for the rest, Massa, I don't think they're so very crucial.
Meanwhile, former Member of Parliament for Thema East and Chief Executive Officer of VALCO, Daniel Nyikwete Titus Glover says the decision lies with the political parties.
And the fact that attempt they made in 2016 did not succeed, now they want to bring this on board, it's left for the political parties to determine it. And when you look at the reasons that they are given, whether it is early or it is late, I think it serves the same purpose. Because when there should be a runoff, you have, is it 20 days or 21 days?
21.
To run. Then you have to prepare for transition and handing over. And that rush is not helpful.
A recent proposal for changing the election date has come from the Seventh-day Adventist Church. This proposal comes after the Seventh-day Adventist Church petitioned the Commission to move the election day from the regular day of December 7 because it falls on Saturday, its day of worship.
Well, so this then sets the tone for what promises to be a very interesting conversation this morning. And you saw that. You heard the MPP's position on the matter. You heard the NDC's position on this matter. I also have an article which has actually been authored by Dr. Mani Boama, who's the Director of Elections of the NDC. At some point, I may have to read it because it captures very succinctly what the position of the Director of Elections is as far as this matter is concerned. It's not a very long one. It's about a 2-pager, but I'll see. I mean, if it becomes extremely necessary, I'll read it. But let me say that Dr. John Osai Kwapong has joined us now. He's on Zoom. Doc, good morning. Thank you very much for accepting to join us on Inside Pages on Metro Television. Thank you.
Good morning. My pleasure.
Wonderful, wonderful. We initially had some technical issue, but it's been sorted. That's wonderful. I hope that Shamima will also be joining us at some point. Shamima, are you on or not? All right, Shams will join us. She will. She's getting ready to join us. Let me say that I have the Member of Parliament for the Buem constituency, the Honorable Kofi Adams. He's here with us. Honorable, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us on Inside Pages. It's good to have you. Right. Oh, sorry, your microphone apparently is off, so if you can put it on. You'll just switch that. Yes. Thank you. Yeah.
Good morning, Moro, and I think this is the first time
you're here.
I'm here for
2024.
the year, so it will be appropriate to still wish you a happy new year. I know things are not good. You cannot be happy, but once God has given us life, we have to thank God for that. And let me take this opportunity to wish my constituents well, my great constituents of Buem constituency, and specifically to wish a good brother of mine a happy birthday, Mohamed Wiafi, a.k.a. Guy 90.
Yeah.
And let me use this opportunity to wish him a very, very happy birthday.
Okay. All right. So I want us to check something out briefly before I bring in Doctor, because I want to start with Dr. John Kwachi on this. So check this out. Right. So the NDC opposes EC's plan to change election day. So this is the NDC's official position on this matter. Now it says, the National Democratic Congress states without equivocation that the Electoral Commission's quest to hold the general elections in November 2024 will not be supported by the NDC. Now, the announcement by Dr. Bosman Asari, the Deputy Chairman, Corporate Services of the EC, does not reflect the irrefutable arguments that led to the consensus that any major electoral reforms should become effective from November 2028. Whereas there was a clear consensus on 2028 as the year of effectiveness, it is untrue that the majority of political parties at IPAC agreed to the November 2024 date. It is therefore strange, but not unexpected, that Dr. Bosman Asari will mislead the general public that almost about 60% of political parties supported the proposal for elections to be held in November 2024 at the IPAC meeting held on Monday, January 29, 2024. IPAC needs to return to its time-honored tradition of building consensus on crucial electoral reforms. Be that as it may, it is important to clarify that out of the 10 political parties at the IPAC meeting, at least 5 spoke eloquently against changing the date for elections to November 2024. We urge the Electoral Commission to concentrate on germane and urgent matters, including immediately releasing the calendar for the 2024 elections as we strive for transparent, free, and fair elections in December 2024. Now, this is signed by Fifi Fiavi Kwete, General Secretary, NDC. Well, I've just had somebody ask me a question. So November or December, what difference will it make? Whoever will win will win. Okay, that's interesting. Anyway, so let me start with Dr. John Osai Kwapong. Doc, once again, let me say thank you very much for joining us. Maybe I'll start with a question that, a viewer just posed. Of course, the person would like to remain anonymous for good reasons. So, November or December, what difference will that make? Whoever will win will win. Can we proceed on that statement? How would you respond to a question like this?
Well, I mean that's that's true, right? Whoever would win the 2024 election would win. If you move it forward a month, if you move it back later a month, I mean, I'm suspecting that whoever would win would win. In fact, if you look at the pre-election survey done in 2016 by Professor Usu Mensah, who was formerly with the Political Science Department, but now is the Director for Research and Policy at the presidency. He asked a time frame question about when did you make up your mind in terms of who you would vote for. And I think it was almost about 70 to 80% had made up their mind almost 6 months before the election who they were going to vote for. So the person who sent the message is correct that generally most people know what they are going to do in December, or if it is moved to November. But I think there are a number of other questions that arise. So from the various statements, news reports that I've read, there are a number of reasons being alluded to as to why the EC is mulling this change or has brought it to IPAC for the political parties to decide. One is, I read something about managing the runoff, right? So between the first round and in the event that there's a runoff. But even if you have the election in November or December, if I'm correct, the framework is that the runoff has to be conducted 2 weeks after the first round, right, if I'm correct.
Yes.
So in
fact, it's 21 days actually. 21 days, yes.
Okay, 21 days. Okay. So 21 days, maybe it gets you, if you do it in November, the first round in November, then that 21 days moves you a little further away from swearing in date, right? The inauguration date, which is January 7th. But if you still have that 3 weeks to 21 days to manage the runoff without an eye towards January 7th inauguration, then I don't see how moving it to November or December makes material difference to the process of managing and preparing for the runoff, unless it is tied to, if we have it on December 7th and there's a runoff, 21 days, that means what, around the 28th, 29th, and, it only leaves another 1.5 weeks, for quote unquote transition and the inauguration date. So that's one. The other issue that I've read about, in terms of the other reason I've read about, is boosting public participation. If anybody who looks at public participation in our elections, the turnout rate, we don't have an issue with getting Ghanaians to the polls to vote. On average, our turnout is 72%, right? I mean, some advanced democracies would envy, or even other places would even envy an average turnout rate of 72%. If you look at the range, it's be between 62%, and we've even hit as high as 86% in the 2004 election. Who is over 90 or 90 something percent. I'm not sure what boosting public participation means, in the eyes of the EC as it relates to moving the election from December to November. But I would agree in principle if the move is to give enough time to resolve any issues, be they the transition issues or be they legal disputes that may arise between the voting day and inauguration day, assuming that the winner is able to secure a one-touch victory on the first round, right? But then even our legal disputes around elections, we've seen that it does take quite a bit of time to get resolved. So I'm really not, and I'm not privy to the conversations that the political parties have been having at IPAC. But I'm not really sure then what the true case is for moving the election from December to November. Like I said, on my third point, if it is to give us enough time to resolve any issues that may arise between voting day and inauguration day, then yes, it would make sense, right? So if you held the election in November, or on November, the first Tuesday of November, right, then you have a couple of weeks in November, the full month of December, so that gives you what, maybe a good 7-8 weeks to get ready, for inauguration. So those are my initial thoughts on this whole idea of this proposal coming from the EC.
Right. Now, there are, unfortunately, these things typically happens. Anytime there's an IPAC meeting, when the political parties or when the stakeholders come out, sometimes, not all the time, sometimes you don't get to hear exactly what the position was in terms of what the unanimous consensus was. So, for instance, we've heard the NDC say that during the IPAC meeting, or at IPAC, the decision was that in principle, the political parties are saying, yes, the November 7 election day is a good one. However, majority did not agree that it must be done this year and that it should be done in 2028, right? So that's what the NDC rep, that's Dr. Manimbo, will tell you. But then you have the Electoral Commission who then came out to say more than 60% of the participants at IPAC or the stakeholders at IPAC did not only say they agree with the change in the timetable per se, but they also agree that it must be done this year. So you see, that's where the challenge is. So then it becomes the word of the NDC as against what the Electoral Commission is saying. But be that as it may, do you think that if this proposal or the implementation of this policy, which is to change it from December to November, if this conversation had started, say, last year, do you think that would have made a difference?
Except that I'm also hearing that the main opposition party is saying that one of the sort of gentleman agreement is that no major electoral reforms should take place in an election
6 months before the
election year.
Yes, it's there. Absolutely.
Right. So I'm suspecting that even if this conversation had started a year ago, if the idea is that you don't make major electoral reforms in the election year, then perhaps it wouldn't have made a difference. Okay. The other thing I want to say about IPAC is that if I understand the way IPAC is designed to work, I have been under the impression that it's a forum for consensus building and not necessarily a forum for majority decision making, right? So let's say if you have 10 political parties and there's an issue for them to discuss at IPAC, the goal is to get all 10 to arrive at some consensus on a particular issue and not necessarily to arrive at what percentage of the parties around the table agree with the idea, and then you move with the idea. At the same time, I know that the EC is designed to be independent and therefore is not at the beck and call and the mercy of political parties. But there is a reason why IPAC has also proven to be an important forum that allows the political parties to have a seat at the table and build consensus around important electoral matters, given that they are key stakeholders in an election. If you listen to Dr. Farijan's Constitution Day lecture, he described the work of the EC and the role of IPAC, in my words, as this sort of balancing act, right? That you use it as a forum, to get the input of an important stakeholder like political parties in electoral matters. But at the same time, you also ensure that the ideas that may emerge from IPAC if they would be injurious to the electoral process, that you would have the EC also being able to assert its independence and push back on any such matters or any such. So it's a really good balancing act, and I'm just hoping that on some of these matters that approach of consensus building vis-a-vis the EC's independent powers would be brought to bear, so we arrive at at a decision that everybody can go go home happy with.
All right, let me bring it.
And that real quick, the NDC has been out of IPAC for some time. Yeah. It's a very welcome decision that they are back at the table. Right. So I think it will be good that their return to IPAC is one that fosters more collaboration and conversation, and not, again, a return to some of these differences with the institution.
All right, let me bring in Shamima now. Shamima, what do you? I don't know where you stand on this. I mean, first of all, does it bother you that we're back to this November, December thing? That doesn't make a difference to you? I don't know what your thoughts are.
Thank you very much, Moro. Good morning, everyone, and good morning to Kofi Adams as well. I haven't seen him in such a long time.
Yeah, he's actually giving you a wave. He's giving you a wave. He's giving you a wave, yes.
Kofi.
Yes, Shamima.
See your face. I've missed you.
I've missed you more.
Good to see you after such a long time. Yeah. So, Mo.
Yes.
On this particular matter, you are right. I mean, in an election year, we must have very few and little distractions from the main purpose as possible. And sometimes I also have to lay the blame squarely at the door front of the Electoral Commission. I'm sorry to say this, because I was really very active in the last district level elections, and all the challenges that came up, all because the Electoral Commission also sought to implement some reforms towards the beginning of that year. They laid a CI. There was a lot of controversy, So when you want to start an electoral reform, you don't control all the variables, and you definitely don't control the eventual outcome, whether the reforms would see the light of day, whether they'll be able to pass the legal requirements to begin the execution and enforcement. Sometimes are all not within your hands or your control. That is why you must, as practically as possible, begin the process very early. I, in principle, do not also think that electoral reforms should happen within the election year, especially when they are contested issues. If the issues are agreeable and Parliament is on standby to use, certificate of urgencies to pass the necessary legislative frameworks to allow for amendments, then we don't have an issue. But this, especially this election, is very, it's high stakes.
Yeah.
Is high stakes, and I should think that all the political parties would not want to be distracted too much by some of these issues. They would like to focus on their campaigns, on their internal political party mechanisms, on deploying their resources, and also on being vigilant and keeping an eye on the issues that will determine the elections. When we throw some of these things in at this time, we spend so much valuable time debating. So here we are now debating pros and cons when we have even passed that bridge in principle, because I also agree, because of our history and some of the challenges we have had, especially when there was a runoff, that it makes reasonable sense to push it back. I mean, the law is made for man, not man for the law, and it's man who makes the law. So if it's not addressing our issues, it is us who should sit around the table cooperatively, collaboratively, and make the necessary amendments at the right time, indeed. So if this conversation had been tabled last year, or even 2 years before the elections when we don't even know who the candidates are. Because Moro, apart from the legal and the concerns about, breaches and rigging, there are also all kinds of spiritual things. People go, yes, dog, I see you are laughing, but it's true. Maybe somebody is told that, no, if you hold this election on this day, you are not going to win this election. So even before we know who the candidates are, nobody is going to see any, soothsayer to say that because we don't know who the candidates are. So it is, for me, the best time to even propose reforms, because reforms are to be lessons drawn from, past events. So we have held an election. We know what the problems are. We've held it for how many number of times now. We know what the germane issues are. If we really want electoral reforms, let's table them at least 2 years before the next elections, where the interests and the stakeholders are not clear and everybody is really seeking in the interest of the future of their own candidates to take the best set of decision for the country and for themselves. But when you propose it at this time, especially when we saw the problems with the district level elections, the EC wasted so much time seeking reforms within the election year, and it didn't happen.
Right.
It didn't happen. Right. So only towards the last quarter did we even have an announcement that the election will happen in December. And what happened during the election day, some areas had to be postponed because there were problems with electoral material. So these are germane problems. For me, I should think that in principle, I agree that we should bring back the date of the election. November 7th is not a bad date. And also because you don't want the Electoral Commission acting and perceived to be responding to only the demand by a sector, a religious sector, the SDA. What if the Muslims also come up? What if the traditional also come up? You see, so what has worked over time, let's not tweak it too much, because even the counter argument I was hearing is that, okay, let's just say the first Tuesday of November. Yeah. And Islam, our dates, our celebratory dates are not predetermined. Yeah. So Salah can fall on that first Tuesday of November. Yeah. It can fall on that. So should we also say we want a holiday? Do you see it? I guess so. We should just stick to what works. I don't think that we should explore those particular reforms that are contentious now. If there are other reforms that are really not contentious, that we can quickly go through the process, by all means, let us consider them. Okay? But the Electoral Commission must take a huge part of the blame in always tabling these things too late in the day.
Shams, thank you very much. It is good to hear your thoughts on this. Now let me come to Mr. Kofi Adams. Mr. Kofi Adams, the argument has been made that the NDC in 2016 was very supportive of this policy, which is to hold elections on November 7th. So the question is, what has changed? Why are you now against it? So that's the question that's been asked.
Well, Moro, it's very clear that the NDC is not opposed
to November 7th.
To November 7th elections.
Okay.
The NDC is opposed to having that happening for the 2024 general elections.
Oh, all right. I get it.
Because we do not have enough time to prepare for that in 2024.
Yeah, but you don't organize elections. The Electoral Commission that organizes elections.
Clearly,
they say they have enough time.
No. Elections are organized by Electoral Commission, but for political parties.
Okay.
You see, they say, if you don't know death, just look at sleep. We've just had a district level elections. You are very much aware that this election was postponed several times. More than 2 times it was postponed when it should have happened. Finally, what happened? We saw elections being run in bits and pieces because the Electoral Commission was not prepared enough.
Operational challenges.
Ballots not properly printed, ballots not properly aligned, not enough ballots here, shifting of candidates' position just because they have to rush within a certain short time to get it done. We don't want a repeat of this in the general elections where interest is so high. So instead of begging for more time, don't be reducing the time that is already available to you. That is one. Two, this is an electoral commission that has been complaining so much about timely release of what? Funds. And that the non-release of funds on time has largely also affected their programming. We in Parliament, when I say we, I'm referring to Parliament, when they raised these concerns, we took it upon ourselves when we were debating their report to appeal to the president to get his finance minister to at least release their funds on time for them. That hasn't happened. We haven't seen that commitment yet. But the Electoral Commission is seeking to move ahead of themselves to shorten the time that is available for them. You don't do that because many of the things that they do are time bound. For example, you cannot have voter transfers 42 days before a general elections. So, for example, if you are bringing the elections date to, say, 7th November, when you have not even given indication as to when you are going to conduct your limited registration to update your voter register, when will voters have opportunity to fall within the 42 days to even be able to transfer their votes? You are also supposed to have the final register go through the processes of certification and be made available to political parties at least 21 days before the general elections. What it means is that if you are bringing the date to 7th November, you are further shifting your at least 21 days further away from November, possibly into early what? October. Would you be ready by then? Considering that January is already gone.
Yeah.
February may go without us having the limited registration.
True.
We may end up doing this either in May or June. You are now going to go through the processes to exhibit this register after you've done all the necessary deduplications and what have you. After exhibition, it goes through further corrections. Then it goes through adjudication and to be certified. And when certified, it must be submitted to registered political parties 21 days before the general election. So this Electoral Commission is running over itself.
So that explains why you're saying that you doubt.
We completely doubt. Because, no, as we speak
If the
now,
Electoral Commission can do this.
they can do it. So they must not mess us up. The truth of the matter is that Electoral Commission is not responsible for transition.
Well, that's true.
Transitional matters are in the bosom of Parliament and the elected and outgoing
Executives.
We can manage it and have managed it in the past when even Electoral Commission have declared results on the 3rd of January 2009. We managed a transition and President Mills was sworn in and he carried on. It may not be the best of situations, but it is not the duty of the Electoral Commission to be talking about transitional matters. When you have serious election-related matters that you have not resolved. You have funding challenge, you have your device challenge, that your biometric verification devices, many of them are outmoded and not functioning very well, and we just saw that in the recent district level elections and so on and so forth. You have a number of challenges with your computer systems and programming. You need to be working at solving this. And if anything at all, make much more time
Yeah.
Because the law, the CI says, make the final voter register available to registered political parties at least 21 days, not 20, at least. It means you can make it available even earlier to help the political parties in identifying properly who is who and who is where.
Yeah.
That is what the Electoral Commission should be focusing on, but not try to shorten the time and crying more than the bereaved.
Kofi, tell me, I'm told there's another layer of what you call an obstacle.
Yeah.
Which is, if the Electoral Commission wants to push, first of all, I mean, in the case of presidential, it only needs to lay a CI in Parliament.
Yeah, that's true.
Which, becomes effective after 21 days.
That's true.
But in the case of parliamentary,
Yep.
there's got to be a 2/3 majority in Parliament to support that motion before.
That's very true.
So you're in Parliament. How does that work?
You realize that in 1992,
Yes.
presidential elections were held in November,
Yes.
7th November, earlier.
Yes.
And parliamentary was held on the 7th of what? December.
December.
Then we witnessed these boycotts by the losing party that they didn't want to participate in the parliamentary process.
Yes.
It was the thinking then that, well, it didn't help our democracy. You knew then the party that was in government and that formed majority is a party the NDC believes in democracy. And so we thought that not being present in parliament, though the parliament worked effectively, is not the way to go. So it will do all of us good if we brought the two elections together. So both parliamentary and presidential was now put together. But because of the provision in the Constitution, I think Article 1124 of the Constitution makes it clear that the election of members of parliament can only be done 30 days before the dissolution of the existing parliament. And because the existing parliament stands dissolved on the 6th of January in the next year after the election year, when you calculate back, you get the 30 days on the 7th of what? December. So you cannot shift the elections of members of parliament to any date earlier than
December
what
7th.
has been provided by the Constitution.
I see.
To amend that provision, you need 2/3 of members of parliament voting for it. And that is about 183 members of parliament of the 275 current parliament as composed.
Practically impossible.
Well, if it was done, for example, with the spirit...
Given the positions that have been canvassed by the two major parties, that's
sure.
what I'm saying.
If it's done with the spirit that, okay, we are doing this with
For
the anticipation
2028.
of using it for 2028.
Okay, that's a different
Because
matter.
there is 100% consensus
Yes.
by the political parties.
Yes.
It means that the political parties' representations in parliament will not have any difficulty.
Absolutely.
But clearly, as it stands now, we have 137.
Yes.
Our party's position is that we should not tamper with the date of elections as far as 2024 is concerned.
Okay.
So right from the word go, our 137 will not support this provision. And so therefore, you cannot have your 183 to have that provision amended.
That won't happen.
That won't happen. Two, if you look at the Electoral Commission's own budget that was brought to Parliament through the finance minister for us to approve, no provision is made for a double elections, i.e., where you will have presidential on a separate date with the recruitment of each officers to be paid, and then a parliamentary elections on another date with the recruitment of each officers to be paid. Don't forget that, assuming without admitting, that if you shift the presidential alone to 7th November, and it is so conducted, and there's a need for a runoff, that runoff will have to happen even before the 7th December. So in that case, you will be having about 3 elections.
Whoa. And it has cost implications.
Cost implications, because you have to recruit presiding officers, you have to recruit all kinds of other officers will be repeated. In the case of combining the elections, you just have one presiding officer. You have one person responsible for the register. And the only additional persons you will have will be those who issue ballot papers. So when you combine the elections, you will only be adding one more table.
Okay.
And maybe one more ballot box, and then a number of booths for the parliamentary process. But if you separate them, you will have to have a presiding officer. You will have to have an officer who checks the registers. You will have to have the verification table. You would have to have the ballot issuer, and so on and so forth. So you recruit these persons, and you have to repeat them in the next elections. And if there's a runoff, repeat them. Meanwhile, your own budget that you presented even have challenges.
Wow.
It's been cut by about 145 million cedis by when you presented it. What you wanted and what the ministry, the ceiling that the ministry gave you was less 145 million. And we've been working and encouraging the finance ministry to find resources to meet that shortfall of 145 million. That has also not happened.
Right.
Then now you want to even burden yourself. So the Electoral Commission is up on a journey that will lead them nowhere. They should focus on other real important things, finish those things up, and let's have our elections on the 7th of December. And we can consider the November date or any other date if towards the subsequent elections where there is consensus.
I see. I think that from everything you've said, I mean, I think it's quite clear that this is a near impossibility, because even the funding part, and you're saying that when they brought the budget, there wasn't anything like that. So I don't know how the Electoral Commission intends to pull this off, but we'll see how that goes. And I think that you have beautifully articulated the position, and so I guess we're all on the same wavelength, on the same page. So we're not going to move to our next topic. I know that's Shamima's favorite topic, and that's about vote buying. She's very, very concerned and very passionate about this madness, which is where people put themselves up for elections, and the same people you want to serve are saying that pay them before they allow you to serve them. Something is not right. And how do we begin to reorient and to socialize our people for them to understand that it's a wrong thing to do? So I'll come back. I will take a short break. When we come back, the WhatsApp line is very active. I've received some of your messages. I'll read them when I come back from this break.
Ghana's political space has witnessed widespread incidents of vote buying during internal party contest and general elections. The country's two major political parties, the governing New Patriotic Party and the National Democratic Congress, have been captured in suspected attempts to induce voters during internal and external elections. The just ended NPP's presidential primaries also witnessed an intense display of cash from leading candidates to influence the votes of delegates. The NPP is set to hold its parliamentary primaries to elect its parliamentary aspirants on Saturday, January 27, ahead of the 2024 general elections. According to the Office of the Special Prosecutor, the current caution by the NPP General Secretary to all aspirants to desist from engaging in vote buying can be attributed to the efforts and effectiveness of the Office of the Special Prosecutor.
Political parties warning its aspirants not to be engaged in such conduct. From this angle, we do not believe it was plucked out of thin air. We believe that it was based on the operations and activities of the office that prompted such caution. And so, as I said, we are primed and we are ever ready if we spot any such occurrences. See, it's not about a particular political party. To us, even if it is student-run elections, even if it is SRC elections at Legon. For us, we see them all as public, unless it's elections in your house. But if a generality of an identified group of persons are engaged in a poll, we take interest in it. So maybe even an association or organization, we take interest. As I said, until the matter is firmly determined that this is public election, this is not public election, we won't sit and wait.
Recently, the Office of the Special Prosecutor arrested the Chief Executive Officer of the National Entrepreneurship and Innovation Program, who is seeking to be the new Patriotic Party's parliamentary aspirant in the Asante Achim Central constituency. Initial reports had suggested that the arrest was linked to his alleged distribution of money to NPP delegates ahead of the parliamentary primaries on January 27. A former executive secretary of the Free Zones Board, Kojochum Buafo, in reaction to the arrest said the Office of the Special Prosecutor should quit wasting everyone's time and arrest political bigwigs engaged in vote buying.
I'm saying that it's a reasonable inference to assume that this was done to disenfranchise him. That's all. And I'm saying that the OSP has bigger fish that he can arrest. Because we have seen people in certain constituencies even stating that they were giving money from COVID fund. He has not arrested them. He should stop trying to waste everybody's time.
Member of Parliament from Praiso, Davis Ansah Opoku, who was also on the show Good Morning Ghana, argued that the arrest of NEIP CEO was a waste of time.
Unless somebody comes in to say that this money somewhere has gone missing, then you can come in and make an arrest. But to say that somebody says on Facebook to allege that I have received 1 cedi from Kojo, and so for that matter, the person must be arrested. I think we have more pressing issues in this country to deal with than this political gymnastics.
Civil society has spoken against vote buying, which seemed to be on the rise despite its illegality. According to a CDD Ghana post-election survey in 2020, an individual standing for presidential elections in Ghana will have to have a colossal $100 million, while parliamentary elections cost at least $693,000. A significant portion of these staggering amounts are reportedly spent on the buying of votes, which undermines Ghana's multi-party democracy.
I'm sure you're worried too, aren't you? We're worried, exceedingly worried. Now, Ghana is striving towards what we call equitable representation and fair elections. But the phenomenon of vote buying continues to cast a very worrying slur on the country's fragile democracy or the democratic process. And as you saw in that feature, or in that art, what I call it a feature, it's becoming a problem. You know, it's becoming a problem. In fact, it has become a problem. But there's a big question as to whether this is ethical campaigning or this is sheer corruption. You know, so we're going to delve into this matter to find out what exactly we can do again, because it's a major problem. It's really, really major problem. In fact, there are lots of very, very fine brains today who can put themselves up for elections because of it. It's just one of the reasons, and so on. Let me bring in Dr. John Osei-Kweapong and pick his thoughts on this, and then Shamima, and then Mr. Honorable Kofi Adams will give us his thoughts, and Honorable Andy Apiaku will also be joining us shortly. That's actually his one of his favorite topics. So let me start with Doc. Doc, so I don't know. It's not a new topic. We've been at this. We've talked about this several times. Do you think we've lost it? We should just accept it as become a norm in our politics. We can't do anything about it.
I don't think we should accept it as a norm and say that we can't do anything about it. If you listen to the remarks of the NCC chair on Constitution Day, one of the things she warns about is that, look, there's a lot of quote-unquote dark money available. And if you're not careful, one of these days, you're going to take money from a source that you don't even know. And who knows, you may even end up, selling your country. And she frames it in that way, I believe, to warn us of the dangers of the unlimited role of money and what it is used in our campaigns. Now, when you bring up this issue, I think it is important for those who are tempted to say, we have, other issues to worry about, there are bigger concerns to worry about, that nobody in principle opposes opposes the idea that you need some amount of financial resources to run for elected office, right? It will be very naive on our part to think that you can run for office and some way, somehow not raise money to fund certain campaign activities in that run for office. The issue is where that money is coming from and how that money is being used. And we are dealing with a twin problem of, one, even a lack of transparency in the financing of political parties, the financing of campaigns, in terms of the sources of funds, and then some of the engagements that we see openly, right? Dr. Farijan would say, look, in the past, we even did this quietly and in the background, but now it even appears that it's an open market of buying, and selling votes. I don't think that it's one of those things where we should say, look, it is what it is and, life must go on. No, I think we should still find ways of, sanitizing the way we approach this issue of financing and funding campaigns, because you don't want to create the impression that democracy is for the highest bidder. But it is also these inducements, this buying, selling, quote unquote, of votes, that I think there should be greater enforcement of the sanctions regime, because there are laws against engaging in this kind of behavior. Now, I don't know if it is because getting the actual evidence to then prosecute the offenders is difficult. That is why, it feels like, why should we even bother? Nobody's going to come to you with a receipt that says person X gave me X amount of money. But we are always seeing these pictures and all of that. And for me, I think that if there is a way of enforcing the sanctions regime when you violate these rules, we must continue to strive, to do that. One of the ways that I have said perhaps you can deal with this issue is that, particularly in internal party elections, you want to move away from the delegate system to an open primary, right? If the goal of these activities is to, quote unquote, buy delegates, then I've been arguing that it is much easier to buy a smaller electoral college, meaning delegates, than it is to try and buy an entire constituency. So if you can move to an open primary, you increase the cost of vote buying and hopefully you reduce its incidence. And hopefully when you get to Honorable Kofi Adams, he would be able to give us some insights as to this observation that I've made. So if you recall, in 2016, for parliamentary elections, the NDC moved to an open primary, which I believe was a very good thing. But then in 2020, they reverted to the delegate system. I would be very interested to know the lessons they learned for having tried that in 2016 and why they moved to that direction. And hopefully the lessons they learned can be shared to help us sort of find a way to move towards this open primary system that I have been, advocating for. The other thing that I hope can help, unfortunately, the political appetite is just not there. I, in principle, support some amount of state funding of political parties. In 2012, the CDD did a study where as high as 51% supported that idea. But in the most recent Afrobarometer in 2022, it's like, don't even think about it. So it seems like our sentiments have really, really changed about, that whole idea of, is there a way that, the state can provide some kind of financial support to political parties if it is well designed, and again, it would reduce going to, sources we don't know about for money to finance campaigns, and if that even strengthens the hand of the legal framework, in implementing some of those rules. But my bottom line is that we shouldn't give up. We should still find ways to discourage this behavior. And then for the candidates, I'm sure they are realizing that no matter how much they offer, that these delegates would still, go ahead and vote the way they want to vote. You see what I'm saying? Even in 2020, the CDD Ghana pre-election survey, there was a question that said, if a candidate offered you an inducement, what should you do, right? And, a lot of people said, well, I'll take it, but I'll still vote the way I want to vote. So maybe that recognition on the part of candidates too, that look, no matter how much I offer in inducements, that it's no guarantee that I would win, then perhaps the monies they raise for their campaigns would be used to, finance legitimate campaign expenditure as opposed to using it to buy votes.
Interesting. Shamima, I don't know. I've been thinking, I'm like, how did we get here? I mean, how have we ended up normalizing something which should be a misnormal? I don't know what I've been thinking about saying. And, if you look at the multifaceted nature of this practice, I've asked the question that it looks like there's a very thin line between ethical campaigning and engaging in electoral corruption.
Right. Thank you, Moro. I think that I put down three things that I wanted to say. I mean, you start with it. I think there's a problem with ethical leadership, and there is lack of internal party democracy and process. And I think these two twin problems is what has further exacerbated the problem. Because for me, the easiest and often practical and logical thing that you think political parties can engage in, to them is often not the practical thing to do. Because if there's anything that should bind political interests together to sit around the table and figure out how to save themselves, I should think that it ought to be shared experience. And from both sides of the divides, even with the smaller parties, we are all in agreement that the way we are going is ultimately not sustainable. And you would hear from Andy Appiah-Kumi decry the spate of monetization and telling us that if this is how it's going to be, he's not going to contest the next elections. So it means that even the politicians are being hurt by the increasing demands by the delegates. But there's no supply if there's no demand. And if there's no demand, there won't be supply. So who do we blame? I would have to blame first off the political institutions and the lack of ethical leadership that continues. And political institutions, I'm starting any time that there is an interest from the side of the gatekeepers, and I'm talking here, whether it's a party in opposition or a party in government, when the top echelons participate and they have direct interest in the outcome of elections, whether parliamentary and whether presidential, the stakes go higher. And then the money influence goes higher. So if, say, the presidency of a certain government becomes interested directly in the outcome of internal party politics and who leads the party and who represents the party in the various constituencies, and ultimately who becomes a successor or a flag bearer. The stakes become higher. So the problem of the increase in monetization can be traced directly to the high offices of every political party. Now, if you come down to the issue of, and it links to the issue I was speaking about the internal party democracy, because if we allow a fair context without fear, because if I'm sitting in my constituency and I begin to hear sounds of my opponent having the ear or the support of the party candidate, presidential candidate, or the office of the presidency, I become jittery, because then I know that my opponent is most likely going to get more resources than I to execute. So what do? I also start mobilizing, and then we keep increasing the ante, because if I hear he's giving 5,000, I also struggle to see if I can do more than 5,000. And if you can't beat the person that has the most resources. So now ultimately it's going to the highest bidder. And that is ultimately problematic for the future of this country. So if we're all having these shared experiences, shouldn't it be easier then as political party institutions to come together and say that, people, how do we stem this tide? What can we do? Because all the interventions we know, all the practical, all the best lessons from other people, political party, public financing of political party and transparency, even caps on campaign spending. With the local level elections, when we have even said that for that, there should be very minimal expenses, and electoral commission is expected to even mount platforms just to reduce. Even now we have seen that the partisan politics has seeped into it, and there's no regulation. So I agree with Doug when he says that there seems to be no consequence for breaches of even our existing laws and regulations. And when there's no consequence for action, what happens? It emboldens, people to continue to push the boundary. As the former Electoral Commission chair has said, in the past, you will never hear a delegate speak to camera and media telling them how much who has given them. Yeah. Hey, you won't hear it. These are like dark secrets of political parties. It will be in the realm of rumors. Yeah. But here we are now, delegates confidently demanding to be paid by candidates publicly to the media. So it's not like they're being secretly reported.
They've been telling you how much they've been paid. Yeah, they're not telling you how much they've been paid.
They have been paid. Yeah. We saw it with the presidential, primaries. Even candidates, Kennedy was there telling us how much people were paying others. So when the crocodile comes out from the water to tell you that this is the situation, who are you not to believe it? So we know that the influence of money in politics is real. Now, what concerns me, and relating it to the issue of breaches and consequences, that if there is real threat that someday our candidates or political aspirants may receive monies from sources that might lead them to sell this country, then we must make the issue of vote buying and vote selling a high treason offense.
That's interesting.
Because here we are with complete lack of transparency regarding the sources of financing for political parties. So who truly owns our economy? We don't know. So if it becomes too, if it becomes too much, we must really consider making the issue of vote buying and vote selling. And when we say vote buying, we are not saying the reasonable amount of money is expected to be expended on organizing, on logistics, on movement. Those are all legitimate. And even if you collaborate with these international agencies, they have prorated, figures. They know generally if you move this amount of money, so we can work out the details of what is reasonable expenses that we expect political parties to, use for their political party campaigns, both the internal contest organizing and the national campaigns, and then individual contests and their campaigns. So whether they are parliamentary candidates or presidential candidates, the Electoral Commission is supposed to be reviewing how many of them are presenting their audited accounts. Look at the individual candidates and the parties that we always have every year who are, allowed to contest the elections. Is the EC even enforcing its own regulations? Are they present nationally on the ground? Do they have constituency offices operating? How are these offices operating? Have they presented their audited accounts? So what is the essence of a law and regulation if we won't enforce it and if there won't be consequence for its breach? So it's like we have completely lacked, we have deviated from ethical behavior of every kind, from the top to the bottom. And we are saying that this is not sustainable. And political parties need to really establish some reforms internally. And I was asking that if a political party is waiting to lead a country, and the one in government is leading the country, whilst it's in waiting, how is it operationalizing itself? Because many of these political parties have offices and they are paying people. Yeah. Yet we don't see them engage in any productive activity. So the political party is beholden to sponsors. And half of the time, it is not even the delegates, because when you look at the money they receive for dues, very minimal. And I'm saying that we have to even get to a point where the delegates of the party must see themselves as the owners who are contributing to the sustenance of the political party. Because the dues are very, very minimal. Very minimal. And yet when it comes to primaries and elections, you are demanding so much. Do you see? So the push and pull effect, we must address it both ways. But I'm saying that the place that would give us the most transformation is at the leadership level. If we agree that no, either we are doing public funding of political parties and we would enforce it, and people must not go beyond a certain threshold. So if you have to give TNT, it must not go above a certain threshold. Okay. With internal party politics, if you have to make movements, it must not go above a certain threshold. But what the problem is that it is the same gatekeepers who will breach the rules when they set it up by always going above the established threshold. So now the security agencies come. So if EOCO office is observing, if SHRAJ is observing, if the office of the special prosecutor is observing these things, and now there's evidence because individuals are on video saying that they were receiving this amount of money, and then you go and then you arrest some small fish. So it's true. Let's go and arrest the people have said gave them this amount of money, and let's trace the source of the money. Right. Otherwise, what is the solution? So, I mean, some of the other solutions I think is that technology and innovation would ultimately help us reduce this influence. And I agree to the argument of also expanding the base, because just how much money can you expend to bribe, all people, everybody who will be contesting the elections. So the political parties themselves need to become more internally democratic and allow for free and fair elections that will reflect into the governance that we have. Okay. Do you see it? Number two, we must also encourage more in-kind contributions from the political party members themselves and volunteerism. And the political parties must also seek to have other productive ways of generating income to support their operations. But ultimately, if the head is rotten, the bottom would also smell.
Right. Typically when you talk to these delegates or these electors, they'll tell you that one of the reasons why they collect these gifts from the politicians or the contestants or aspirants or whoever they are is because they never get to see them again until another 4 years. And, they've been voting. There's nothing in there. And I'm not saying this because I'm justifying this practice, because I think it's bad. But you know, if it's also important for us to get into the psyche of the electorates to understand why they do what they do. So this is my time. This is my cocoa season. You know, if I don't collect the thing now, I don't know when I'll see this MP or this assemblyman or whatever it is. Anyway, so Honorable, I mean, you're a consummate politician. You've been in this game for a very, very long time. I mean, you've been a spokesperson for the former president, Jerry John Rawlings, for many, many years. I mean, well, that's why I'm saying you're a consummate politician. You understand. Why do you think that these electorates continue to collect money from politicians anytime they come to them for vote? Why?
Well, Boru, let me say that you are right if you describe me in those words in terms of my political activity. Right. Because for every level of party organization, I have played a role there. I've played a role as a student wing leader, team. I've been a branch level as a chairman. I have played a role as a constituency youth and secretary. I've played a role at the regional level as youth leader. I've played a role at national level as deputy national youth organizer, deputy general secretary, and national organizer and campaign coordinator. And of course, I've worked with the founder of our party as a spokesperson for quite some time.
Right.
It is true that I've been a delegate, and I've also stood for elections to be elected at the party level and also at the general level. And I must say that some of the things that I witnessed today, if that was how it was done in the past,
right,
then many of us could not have tempted to even say that we are even picking forms to contest. It's something, if we do not all work to stop, will destroy our multi-party democracy and fight against corruption. But like Shamima said, you can't fight this without the leadership, those who have the moral authority. And I would give you a few pointers. And I would also lead you to realize that it is also not about the absence of laws.
Right.
It is just our failure
to implement.
Yeah,
because we have
we have a number of laws to use in dealing
People's
with these situations.
Yeah,
and
political parties,
and
you know,
both
and so on.
Dr. Osei Kwapon and Shamima mentioned it. If you take, for example, our district level elections, which is supposed to be non-partisan,
right,
and which is supposed to be led by the Electoral Commission through the mounting of platforms for candidates. Because the idea is for candidates not themselves to do most of the running around where expenditure would be quite high. So the Electoral Commission is to lead the way in doing so.
Right.
And when persons are seen to have been associated partisanly, they should, in one way or the other, be disqualified from going ahead. It doesn't happen.
Right.
Meanwhile, there are enough laws to be used in that sector.
Right.
In the same way, we all know that vote buying, I don't immediately remember the PNDC law, is criminal. There's a PNDC law that criminalizes vote buying.
Yeah.
And I do know some one or two persons are answering questions in relation to what?
We have the Political Parties Law 2000, Act 574, and the Representation of the People's Law 1992, PNDC Law 284.
Exactly, Law 284.
That criminalizes vote buying.
Criminalizes vote buying. There's provision in it that criminalizes vote buying.
Absolutely.
But if you have a situation where persons bestowed with moral authority and some of them whose position has further been enhanced politically seek to get involved in a way that suggests or push and promote persons who engage in vote buying, it becomes very difficult for us to fight it. Take, for example, where assembly members gather together and refuse to confirm a government appointee for district chief executive position, who bribed them and they thought that he could not perform his duty, and therefore they voted the person out.
Yes.
Got summoned by a chief and made to kneel
for voting the person out?
For not confirming the person. This was a matter that was so much reported. But luckily, that very nominee is currently, I think, being prosecuted by the special prosecutor. The Joabing, the one who was fighting, asking for.
Yes.
You remember when they did not confirm him the first round, a chief.
Yes.
I don't want to mention his name because for good reason.
Yes.
Invited the assembly members who were identified as the ringleaders who are leading the crusade for his non-confirmation because they feel he is incompetent, he cannot function effectively, and he's only buying his way through to the palace and were made to kneel. It's inappropriate. Yeah. So how do you help people to genuinely sometimes engage in such fights? If you have situations where the regional vice chair of Northern Region, who was also a candidate for Sanerigu, come clearly to say that even public funds, such as COVID-19 funds, were made available, what was given her as her share as a candidate. She added it to her executives. If we have all these reports and we do nothing about it, it then flows all the way down where you have other persons feel like then anytime there is an election, we have to start demanding for one thing or the other and not based on performance. If you try marketing only your performance, they will tell you that one is for everybody. And that in this community, maybe NDC people benefit from, if it is water that you have brought, NDC people benefit, MPP people benefit, everybody benefits. So I'm looking for something that I personally will get. That is how some of the demand starts.
Is it that they don't care what the consequences of these practices?
I think the NCCE has to do a lot more work than they are doing. That people must know the roles and responsibility of various persons.
Right.
Because when you engage in such acts, look, our performance, the Transparency International just released its recent CPI ranking.
Corruption Perception Index.
We have remained that low point.
Okay.
When the NDC was in power, we scored a high of 48. And that has been our highest
since 2016.
The worst in the period of the NDC was 43. Do you know that that has been the best under this government? The worst of the NDC, 43, has been the best under this government. They have sometimes even gone as low as
40.
39, 38.
Right.
They have gone as low as that. And now we have stayed at 43 for such a long time. Why wouldn't us perform so bad if people spend so much to get elected beyond their even pay?
Right.
Some of the monies you hear people spend to get elected, Chief, is more than 20 times their total pay that they will earn for the 4 years when elected. Because
is it worth it?
Exactly.
I mean, you have been an MP 2 times.
It's not
worth
it.
Is it worth it?
That's what I'm saying. It's not worth
when
it.
When I listen to what MPs talk about and they are complaining about, they are broke. Why would you want to spend so much money?
So I would spend, if I'm spending for development,
yes.
I am happy about it.
Okay.
Because I know I am touching lives.
Right.
For example, if I spend to extend water to a community, I'm happy about it because I know it's going to reduce the time the young ones will spend
Kofi,
struggling for
I
water.
understand that. So when delegates come to you or electors come to you and they say, Charlie, Honorable, today you have to do something, what do you tell them?
Well, I have to do, what is that something? May I ask you straight away that the something I'm doing is what will help you. For example.
You don't fear they will not retain you?
No.
Really?
No. Look, for every election that I go into, you don't need to please everybody to win.
Okay.
You don't need to please everybody to win.
But you want as
so
much
you
votes
target.
as possible.
You target.
But don't you seek to increase your votes?
I'm saying that you don't need to please everybody to win. If pleasing that person means that doing the wrong thing that you cannot do,
then it's not
and
worth
that
it.
will lead you into many other problems, why should you do it? Why do you have to do it? So there is a need to further explain. Otherwise, a day will come when people will collect money from persons they are not supposed to collect money
That's
from.
true.
And it becomes difficult for you now to make laws that affect such persons.
Absolutely.
Look, the Electoral Commission itself, that sometimes is supposed to check some of these things. They themselves don't even resource their lower officers.
Yeah.
So these officers depend on the political actors and other persons to perform official duties.
Wow.
Do you know that Electoral Commission, fuel allocation to their even district officers, directors?
They don't have.
They don't have. Sometimes they continue to cut it, where they are entitled to a certain number of gallons. Because fuel prices keep going up, they've kept the money at the same level, and therefore, what could buy you maybe 10 gallons is now buying you only 3 gallons. So, but you need to perform some duties, and you have to depend either on political actors or other persons within your district to be able to perform official
We're in
duty.
trouble.
How do you expect these persons
Yeah.
to check aspirants
Yeah.
who they themselves go to go and sometimes ask for money?
Yep.
And that explains why so many things go wrong, and you have all manner of persons looking the other way. But it's terrible.
It's terrible.
A week today.
Yes. Let me. So sorry about that. A week today. Please stand.
A week today was our MPP.
Yes.
colleagues
Internal elections.
having their internal
The
elections.
primaries. Yes.
And it was an obscene situation where, like you have all said, in the past maybe they hide it. Today, persons want to put their images on the envelopes that they put the money in, or television sets that they want to use to buy, or motorbikes they want to use to buy. There is one place, the Deputy Minister for Health, he lost.
Okay.
A video image was shown some time back where patients were being given drip under trees. And this was a Deputy Minister for Health's constituency.
Wow.
Patients were taken that's hospital under trees.
Under trees.
Then when this election was also going to happen, there were reports that some motorbikes were delivered in the constituency in his name.
Right.
The price of about 10 of those motorbikes can extend a shade and provide beds for persons in the community to have good health care.
So
but
it
because
means-
of demand
Yes.
from
The
constituents, they will tell you, oh, we don't have enough. The enough they raise from individuals, which they could have used to support whatever officially comes to them for development, they will keep it to use it in
For elections.
influencing delegates, which is
Doc,
inappropriate.
Doc, I've been wondering. I mean, you are a researcher. You play in the research space. Is there a direct correlation? I mean, never mind what some of the delegates tell us, because we've not been able to speak to every delegate or every voter. But is there a direct correlation between vote buying and electoral outcomes?
So this is how I put it.
Okay.
Money is necessary, but it's not sufficient, right? There's no that sort of direct correlation in terms of if I spend obscene amounts of money or if I spend this amount of money, it guarantees me a victory or not. No. There's really no evidence to that. Yes, campaigns are getting costly. You have to finance them, etc., etc. I mean, even if I use the US as an example where I live and work, right? If you go back, you would see different outcomes. So in 2016, for example, the Hillary campaign raised and outspent the Trump campaign, right? But Trump won. The Clinton campaign was outraised and spent, at least in 1992, by the Bush campaign, but Clinton won, right? So there are several examples. Even if you look at some of our state races and things like that, you would see where parties have spent more than their opponents, and sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. So the money, yes, does help you to cover certain expenses, but I don't think money is a good enough substitute then for a solid message and voters feeling like you are the most quote-unquote competent person to hold that office. So the money doesn't guarantee anything. You remember the by-election in Asin, right? You remember the song that I saw this video where a group of people were singing this song, Charles Opoku Sikanu Yaji, right? Yes. I mean, that for me is one of the things that I hope candidates would start picking some lessons from, that says there's no direct correlation in terms of a guarantee that if I pay, I would win. But I also know that no candidate wants to risk unilateral disarmament, right? Because they don't want to go in saying, well, if I pay, there's no guarantee that I'll win. But they also don't want to risk knowing that their opponent is not going to say, well, let's all not pay. Because what if you decide not to pay, your opponent pays, and maybe that payment that your opponent made is what then, guarantees him or her, that victory. Then you would have become a victim of unilateral disarmament. So it's quite a complex, challenging thing. But like I said, at the end of the day, your money would not always win you an election. And we've heard that and we've seen that. Fear delegates, all of that,
Well, Shamima, if you ever wanted to stand for any position in this country, I don't know what your future plans are, but if you wanted to stand for any political position in this country and a delegate or an electorate comes up to you and says, Shamima, Charlie, you have to do something, or to the inside no good, and that kind of thing. I mean, what will be your response to that person? And based on what Doc has said, which is that there's no direct correlation or nexus between how much money you pay and electoral outcomes, then it begs the question, why do people continue to pay? I mean, isn't it the case that the people already know who they want and that the money really is not the biggest deciding factor? So two questions in one. If you can do this briefly, I'll be very happy because time is almost up.
Why have you personalized this question like that? Why didn't you ask Papo?
I mean, you never know.
You want my trouble this
okay, let me put it this way. What should the politicians be telling them when they come to them and ask them for all kinds of gifts?
My constituency to come and contest
but one of the major problems, like I was saying with the demand and supply issue is that when you know that perhaps you have no message, because you see, expectations are built in the minds of people over time by the actions of those that lead the people. Like Kofi Adams was saying, in the past, why wasn't it like that? It wasn't like that because perhaps the politicians were not offering and the delegates were not demanding. So to a large extent, although money has always been part of our political party and political organization, it will always be. Democracy, as we all know, it's expensive. It involves movement. It involves so many moving parts, both the state institutions, the CSOs, so many stakeholders. And so there will always be money that needs to be spent for the wheels of democracy to be oiled and to be oiled effectively. But the trend over time is that because politicians have continuously failed to deliver on the social contract, Because if the economy is vibrant, if you come and you promise me one district, one hospital, and I actually wake up and there's a hospital in my district and national health insurance is working and I'm able to take my aging parents to the hospital and I get the necessary drugs and I feel connected to the rewards of the democracy and the good governance, I will find it difficult to make some other demands from you. You see, because apart from the party contest, in the national elections, the issue of vote buying is less. You know, the problem has to do with the internal contest, where the numbers are a bit lower, and so the influence is a bit, the money influence gets a bit higher. For the national elections, although the cumulative cost is greater because of the advertising, because of the advertising and the big campaigns and what do they call it when they rallies, you see. So back to the earlier point I was making, when politicians continue to fail citizens, the only way they now realize that they can have a bite of the national cake is during the cocoa seasons. And the electoral, contest seasons have become the cocoa seasons for every citizen. Right. So that is why we must blame the police. If they delivered on their social contract and people had access to basic services, to quality education, had access to quality water, sanitation services, that is the democracy. The roads are good. They go to the market. They are able to purchase. They have disposable income. Inflation doesn't come and eat away. And in the midst of you failing to deliver your social contract, they are seeing how expanding your waistline is becoming, how big, the number of big cars you are driving, the businesses you are putting up, people who haven't run any business at all in their life who come into politics within 4 years become, so prominent in terms of the material things they have acquired. We must blame the politicians. Right. And they have, whet the appetite of the delegates by their own profligacy?
Profligate, posture.
And the image station, yes, the expenses. So if you show us you have a lot, then we'll also demand a lot. So it must be two-pronged. The CSOs, the state NCCs, we must ramp up public education so that we let the citizens know that immediate gratification will not solve the problem for them. I get it. And that it will ultimately become costly for the citizens if they themselves encourage these immediate gratifications by how much will this money do for you? I mean, within a week or two or a month, you have expended it.
I saw a lady.
So the citizens themselves must be empowered to demand more. I get because right now, I've lost hope in the ethical behavior of our politicians, because they too now have known that the only way they can continue to hold on to power is by appeasing the delegates in these formats. And they will never come because there's no trust. If internal politics, if we all agree that you will not, as candidates, we will not spend above this range. So whatever you do, it should work within this range. And then your message, your persona, your character should then do the rest for you. So people would focus on key issues. Then the little thing you add to the regular TNT food becomes just a little icing on the cake. I get it. But it won't happen because they will not agree. Even if they agree, somebody will breach the agreement.
So
I disagree with
Shamima partly.
Not Shamima partly, and even Dr. Osai Kwapon as well. You see, we make it easier for those who do it to continue doing it. Let's call a spade a spade. Immediately we say politicians. We are hiding let's straight away talk about those in government. They do it the most. Did we experience this massive vote buying when it's elections? No. We didn't experience it in this manner. But you see...
But can we trust that when the NDC comes to power?
Well, that's why I'm saying that we should call it a spade so that we put the pressure on where we should put the pressure. But when we make it politician, then we all get brushed in the same manner. For example, you hear, politicians, and you are taking fuel for free. You are doing this. No MP actually takes fuel for free. It is those in the executive who do so. And it is those in executive who leave their executive office to go competing for this position that raise the bar of bribing and corrupting the system. And we need to call them out.
But Kofi, Kofi, I respectfully disagree. I think that yes, the MPs in power, we've seen what they were doing with vote buying, etc. But I don't think we can spare the NDC as well.
I'm not saying that
spare. The NDC has not been an angel.
I'm not saying that spare the NDC. So, you see, when we are, where does it emanate from? Where does it start from?
I get it. But the point I'm trying to make is that that's why if you listen to our
let's tackle and confront where when we stop it,
yes, but
it will indirectly affect all the other areas.
If we say because the MPP is in power today, we should just focus on the MPP, I think that we'll not be dealing with the issue.
Why do you think that this topic has become so serious for us
because
to
the MPP is in power
because
today.
Of what they did.
We know
no, not just because they were in power, because of what they did.
I agree with you.
The NDC have been in power in the past. Did you observe such things?
Well, maybe we can debate scale. We can debate quantum.
Well, so
but you see, the practice is the practice.
That is why I'm saying that. Let's get what you see.
That's fine.
The proposal that we should increase the numbers by every member voting won't solve the problem if we don't do the right education also to the voters.
But if
for them to understand,
you don't think the more expensive
I'm saying that no, for us to understand why we elect people. When they say you are a delegate, what does it mean?
Okay,
that you have been delegated by the people you represent to go and exercise a certain power on their behalf.
Okay.
It is not your personal thing.
Okay.
And now you must look at their wishes, their needs. Because some of the things that they really want, for which reason they feel they have not gotten. And therefore they must take it on the day of party primaries and what have you. Sometimes it's not the responsibility of the officer from whom they are demanding such things.
Right.
Because how do you expect an MP to be the one constructing routes when he has no such budget? Okay. How do you expect him to be the one fixing all the problems that come their way? Okay. They make the promise, Shamima, because we run the campaigns together. Presidential and parliamentary elections are done together. And you have to amplify your party's manifesto, what your presidential candidate will do when elected. So when the party doesn't get elected, most of the things you talk about on the platform cannot be implemented. Sometimes when your party even get elected, like President Akufo-Addo said, because a particular candidate did not win, so it also can happen. So we need to weigh that. Yes, you say this on platform, not necessarily because you as a person will do it, because you say, when we come to power, you didn't say, when you vote me, when we come to power, when we come to power. So you are talking
it's a collective
plural, a collective.
It's a collective
and
matter.
we must educate people to distill.
Let me apologize. The Honorable Andy Appiah Kubi was supposed to have been with us. He's the MP for Asante Akim North. Unfortunately, he's not been able to join us. He's had some issues. He said he's had some difficulties, and so he's not able to join us. Let me read some messages quickly. I'm not sure if we have enough time, but let's see. Great program. Why there's no MPP member to counter this man? When he pleases them, it's fine, but when it is other person, then the person is dead. If they trumpet it, then they will trumpet it loud. The NDC also does vote buying more than any other party. That's coming from Ima in Accra. This one from Simon. Simon is he's a parliamentary reporter, but he's actually the dean of the Parliamentary Press Corps. He also sends a message and says, I can tell you for a fact that almost all the CEOs who splash money, or a lot of money, in order to get elected as PC always regret entering Parliament.
Yeah.
However, it is shocking that these same people will go for all sorts of loans to retain the offices they regret entering. Thank you, Simon. So there must be something there to really make it worth it going for huge sums of loan just to make sure you either retain or you enter.
When you enter, getting out
it becomes
a problem. It doesn't reach your plan to exit
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Anyway, please, I'm an MPP former ex-school member. But to be frank, Honorable Kofi Adam said it all. Let's stick to December 7 period. That's coming from Suleiman Jibril in 2nd D. Hardy from Pig Farm said, good morning, my brother. When will Mother Ghana rest? Small under this illegal connection government. President Akufo-Addo is the only president who has disappointed the past, disappointed the present, and disappointed the future. Surely the Nana Addo Bawumia government will forever remain the biggest disappointment of the Fourth Republic of our dear nation. Okay. That's coming from Hardy in Pig Farm. Al-Hassan Sisi from Zenu Central says the MPP are those who have modernized, I think it's also monetized our democracy. When they decide to brand gifts from party colors to delegate, that's why we have the highest bidders in parliament, and they are not being patriotic when there is a decision to make on behalf of Ghanaians. Anyway, so these are some of the messages that you have sent. Some of them are not directly related to the topic, and so I would not read them. But anyway, so I guess we'll have to end it here, Kofi. So I'll take, Doc, if you can do a minute each, your final remarks on this issue about vote buying. Doc, a minute each, and then Sham, a minute each, and then we can wrap it all up because we have just 4 minutes to end the program. Doc, so in a nutshell, what are you saying?
Can I please give my 1 minute to
sure, please do.
Honorable Kofi Adams, because I want to know why the NDC tried the open primary, which I'm advocating, but then reverted to the delegate system. Maybe they must have learned something from that process.
So we did it, but we had a challenge with the compilation of the register. And so we thought that let's start from the basics. We will get there again. And so now we are trying to develop a biometric type of membership, which has been tried and then tested. So that is what we will get there. We will surely get there where all members will be voting. Right. But the last point that I want to say with my 1 minute is that the highest bidders won in the recent primaries.
Really?
I want to urge Ghanaians to vote NDC members who care about their development come December, to bring them development.
I hear you.
That is what I'm appealing to them. Those who care about themselves have gone for huge monies.
Mr. Kwabena Sarpong, he's one of the spokespersons for the MPP. He's very vocal when it comes to them. He says, he's watching, he says, Moro, the delegates are behaving like queen mothers in the Akan tradition. These queen mothers determine who becomes a chief in those areas. So during that time, they raise their shoulders. After the selection of chiefs, they become irrelevant. Have you heard of any dignitary going to visit a queen mother? No, they only visit the chiefs. Kofi Adams, get real. It's the politicians who are doing that. It is not the party in power. He says you should try and, decouple the two. Shams, you have a minute. In a nutshell, what are you saying before you leave?
Professor Stephen Adai, who himself has had cause to raise a lot of concerns about how things have gone in President Akufo-Addo's government, has always said that leadership is cause and everything else is effect. If our leaders get it right, a lot of things will get better. But if our leaders continue to fail us, then it behoves on the critical mass of citizens who reflect deeply about their situation and who come to the realization that it is not enough to promote and encourage and embrace the status quo, and that if they mobilized for action and demanded better from our leaders, we will get better leadership. I also want to just add that it is the duty of any and every leader to truly understand, to be suspicious generally as a default, mode, to be suspicious of everybody around him, including his own appointees. Not to be paranoid, but to be suspicious, because we expect that leaders must truly know the nature of man, especially in the face of power and money. And so leaders must not be seen publicly to be quick, to clear, accusations or perceptions or concerns about decaying democracy and decaying politics.
All right.
And I think that President Akufo-Addo must be concerned about, the nature of the internal contest of the New Patriotic Party, which seems to have upped the ante this time around in terms of the influence of money, which was glaring for all of us to see. That is a bit concerning, and he should be aware of these things in terms of the way that it would, affect his own legacy into the future.
I get it. Thank you very much, Shamima Muslim. It's always a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so very much. I also want to say a big thanks to Dr. John Osakwapo, who is a political scientist and also a member of the CDD, in fact, a CDD fellow, a CDD Ghana fellow. I also want to say a big thanks to Mr. Kofi Adams, who is a member of parliament for the Boem constituency. He's taking time, was very busy schedule to join us. We really and truly appreciate that. But unfortunately, the honorable member of parliament for the Asante Akim North constituency is unable to join us. He sincerely apologizes. Something came up. And so please bear with us. It wasn't a deliberate decision to leave out the NDC rep. So please... sorry, the MPP rep, so no any funny or suspicious thoughts. Anyway, I want to say thanks for watching Inside Pages. But before I go, just a quick one. A very good friend of mine, Queen Kadi of East Legon. You're celebrating your birthday today. I want to say a big happy birthday to you. Have a swell time. Be good. I wish you God's blessings, Allah's blessings. And I want to say happy birthday. Who else? Oh, John Dumelo. John Dumelo is also celebrating his birthday today. Happy birthday, boss. Have a good day. Bye-bye.